All right, so welcome to this deep dive. We know that you are watching Bitcoin pretty closely these days, and we actually have a new article all about its performance and, well, what might be driving it.
Okay.
And one thing that really stood out to me um, was that Bitcoin almost hit its all-time high earlier this week.
Yeah, it was really close.
Crazy, right?
That absolutely, I mean, even though it closed at $70,250.55 on November 1st,
Right.
which, that is down about 2.47% from the day before.
Okay.
That dip actually came after a rally that almost took it to that record high.
So even with the dip, Bitcoin is still up over 101% from a year ago.
Exactly.
That means it's like basically doubled in value since last November.
Yeah, it was trading at around $34,942 then.
Wow, that's wild.
It really shows how volatile Bitcoin can be.
Yeah.
Which, can be exciting, but also a little scary.
Definitely, definitely.
But despite all of those price swings, the overall trend has been really positive.
For sure. And I think that's attracting a lot of attention from investors all over the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're talking about a market cap of over $1.1 trillion.
Yeah.
That's not just some small niche asset anymore.
Right.
Bitcoin is a serious player in the world of finance now.
Totally agree. And we've seen some impressive monthly growth, too.
Oh, yeah?
Almost 15% just in the last 30 days.
Wow. So it seems like everyone is holding their breath wondering if Bitcoin is finally going to hit that new all-time high.
Yeah.
The article mentioned that it was trading close to $73,000 earlier this week.
Yeah, it did.
So it definitely seems like it has momentum.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of that is being fueled by the possibility of new regulations coming soon.
Really?
Yeah, there's been talk about legislation, particularly in the EU with the MiCA framework.
Okay.
That could be really beneficial for crypto assets.
I see.
This kind of regulatory clarity could be huge for Bitcoin adoption,
Okay.
especially from institutional investors who have been a little hesitant to get involved so far.
So all those positive vibes about regulations are really driving up optimism among investors. But I'm curious, do you see clear regulations as good or bad for the future of Bitcoin?
That's a good question. There are strong arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
Some people believe that clear regulations will actually help legitimize Bitcoin, and that will really pave the way for mainstream adoption.
Right.
But then others are worried that too much regulation could stifle innovation and kind of go against that whole decentralized spirit of cryptocurrencies.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance.
It is. And the article also talks about this surge in market activity with really high trading volumes.
Right.
As everyone reacts to every little piece of news.
Yeah, it's like the whole world is just glued to the Bitcoin ticker.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy.
And that intense activity is definitely a big factor in Bitcoin's volatility.
Okay.
It's such a responsive market.
Right.
Prices go up and down based on news, sentiment, even just rumors.
Okay.
It's exciting for traders who want to make some quick money.
Yeah.
But it can be pretty nerve-wracking for anyone looking for long-term stability.
Sure.
It's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it seems like this volatility is just part of the Bitcoin experience at this point.
I think so.
But what I find really fascinating is that all this increased activity also points to Bitcoin becoming more and more intertwined with the global financial system as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. We are seeing more businesses, from big tech companies to payment platforms, starting to accept Bitcoin.
Yeah.
This growing acceptance, plus the sheer amount of trading that's happening.
Yeah.
It's a pretty clear indication that Bitcoin is not just a niche thing anymore.
Right.
It's actually starting to challenge the traditional financial order.
So that makes me wonder, is Bitcoin a friend or foe to traditional institutions like central banks?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are wondering that.
Are they watching nervously from the sidelines, or are they trying to figure out how to integrate this new technology into their existing systems?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Some experts believe that central banks might eventually issue their own digital currencies. They're often called CBDCs.
Got it.
And those could potentially compete with or even complement Bitcoin.
Okay. Interesting.
But then there are others who argue that Bitcoin's decentralized nature, that whole thing,
Right.
it actually fundamentally challenges the whole concept of central banking.
Wow.
So it's really a fascinating debate.
It is. Okay. So we've got this crazy mix of incredible growth, wild price swings, uncertainty about regulations, and a potential showdown brewing with the world of traditional finance.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. But what does all of this actually mean for someone like you?
Right.
Someone who is interested in Bitcoin, but maybe not quite sure what to make of it all.
Well, I think that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because Bitcoin represents a fundamental shift in how we think about money and value.
Okay.
It's a digital asset. It's not controlled by any government or institution.
Right.
And its value is determined solely by the market.
Mm.
This opens up all sorts of possibilities,
So
both exciting and potentially disruptive.
it's like we're witnessing the birth of a whole new financial era.
And I think so.
And we're all just trying to figure out where we fit in.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to understand not just the price of Bitcoin,
Right.
but also the technology behind it, the economic principles that drive it,
Yeah.
and the potential impact it could have on society as a whole.
It's really cool that this deep dive has gone so far beyond just looking at numbers on a screen.
Yeah.
We're talking about a potential paradigm shift in how the whole world handles money.
And that shift is happening right now,
Right.
as we speak.
Right in front of us.
The decisions being made today about Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies,
Yeah.
they're going to shape the financial landscape for generations to come.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
from the present to the future.
Okay.
Imagine a world where Bitcoin and other decentralized digital currencies play a much bigger role in our lives.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
You know, like in our everyday lives.
Right.
What would that look like?
Well, imagine a world where you could send money instantly to anyone, anywhere,
Wow.
without needing a bank.
Okay.
Where you have total control over your own financial data,
Right.
and you can choose how you want to manage your own wealth.
Wow.
And imagine a world where millions of people
Yeah.
who don't have access to traditional banks
Right.
could finally be included in the global financial system.
Those are some pretty big what ifs.
They are.
But it seems like Bitcoin actually has the potential to turn those what ifs into reality.
It really does, and that's why it's crucial for everyone to stay informed and stay engaged.
For sure.
The decisions made today about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies will have a ripple effect for years to come.
So let's take a minute to recap what we've learned in our deep dive into Bitcoin so far.
Okay.
We started by looking at its recent price action, that near miss of its all-time high, and then that dip.
Right.
But we quickly moved beyond just the numbers to explore the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
We talked about that remarkable growth of Bitcoin over the past year.
Yeah.
The ongoing debate about regulation.
Right.
And those increasing signs that Bitcoin is becoming a real force to be reckoned with in the global financial system.
It really is.
We also discussed how all of this might impact you, the listener.
Right.
You know, what possibilities are there? What challenges might you face?
Yeah.
And the questions that Bitcoin raises about the future of money itself.
For sure.
Before we wrap up today, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
If Bitcoin continues on this trajectory,
Right.
with growing adoption, increasing market activity, and the potential for clearer regulatory frameworks,
Yeah.
what role could it play in the future global economy?
The big question.
It is. Will it be a disruptive force that upends the traditional financial systems?
Yeah.
Or will it become a complementary asset that kind of coexists alongside existing currencies?
Right.
Or maybe something else entirely?
Yeah. It's hard to say for sure.
And maybe even more importantly, what could this mean for you personally?
Yeah, that's the key question.
How might Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies impact your own financial decisions, your investments, even just your daily life in the years ahead?
It's worth considering.
It really is. Those are questions that only time will answer.
True.
But one thing is certain.
Okay.
The world of finance is changing rapidly.
Yeah,
And Bitcoin is at the forefront of that change.
absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope it's given you a better understanding of Bitcoin and its potential impact on the future.
For sure.
We can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither.
It's going to be interesting.
It really is.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it seems like this volatility is just something we have to accept as part of the Bitcoin world.
Right.
But what's really interesting to me is that all this increased activity
Yeah.
seems to suggest that Bitcoin is becoming more and more connected to the global financial system.
Absolutely. We're seeing more businesses, like big tech companies, payment platforms.
Right.
They're starting to accept Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's becoming more mainstream.
And that growing acceptance, along with just the huge volume of trading,
Right.
it really shows that Bitcoin isn't just some niche thing anymore.
It's a major player.
It's challenging the old way of doing things.
Yeah, so that makes me wonder, is Bitcoin a friend or foe to those traditional institutions like central banks?
That's the question everyone's asking.
Right. Are they watching nervously from the sidelines, or are they trying to figure out how to integrate this new technology into their systems?
It's a tough one to answer. Some experts believe that central banks might actually start issuing their own digital currencies.
Okay.
They call them CBDCs.
CBDCs, okay.
And those could either compete with Bitcoin or even work alongside it.
Interesting.
But there are others who think that Bitcoin being decentralized,
Yeah, that whole idea.
it really challenges the whole idea of central banking. So it's a really interesting debate.
It is. So we've got this crazy mix of huge growth, wild price swings, uncertainty around regulation,
Right.
and this potential battle brewing with the world of traditional finance.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But what does this all mean for someone like you, the listener?
Yeah.
Someone who's interested in Bitcoin, but maybe isn't sure what to make of all this.
I think that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Bitcoin represents a totally different way of thinking about money and value.
I see.
It's a digital asset. It's not controlled by any government or institution.
Right.
And its value comes solely from the market.
Okay.
This opens up all kinds of possibilities.
Like what?
Exciting ones, potentially disruptive ones.
It feels like we're watching a brand new financial era being born.
I think we are.
And we're all trying to figure out where we fit into it.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to understand not just the price of Bitcoin,
Okay.
but the technology behind it, the economic principles, the potential impact it could have on society.
This deep dive has really gone beyond just the numbers on a screen.
It had.
We're talking about a potential paradigm shift in how the entire world handles money.
And that shift is happening right now.
Yeah.
The decisions being made about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're
Right.
going to affect things for generations.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's shift our focus a bit
Okay.
from the present to the future.
All right.
What would a world look like where Bitcoin and other decentralized digital currencies play a much bigger role in our lives?
Imagine a world where you could send money to anyone, anywhere, instantly.
Wow.
Without needing a bank.
Okay.
Where you have complete control over your financial data.
Right.
You choose how you want to manage your money.
That sounds pretty good.
And imagine a world where millions of people who don't have access to banks,
Yeah.
they could finally participate in the global financial system.
Those are some pretty big changes we're talking about.
Yeah, they are big, but Bitcoin really seems to have the potential to make them happen.
Yeah, it's exciting and a little scary all at the same time.
It is. That's why it's so important to stay informed and engaged.
Absolutely, because the decisions we make today about Bitcoin and other cryptos,
Yeah.
they could have huge implications for the future.
Exactly. So let's recap what we've talked about in this deep dive into Bitcoin.
Okay.
We started with its recent price action.
Right, almost hitting that all-time high and then the dip.
But we quickly moved beyond just looking at the number.
To the bigger picture.
We talked about how much Bitcoin has grown over the past year,
Right.
the whole debate about regulation,
Yeah.
and the signs that Bitcoin is becoming a real force in global finance.
For sure. And we talked about how this might impact you, the listener.
What opportunities and challenges are out there?
And the questions that Bitcoin raises about money itself.
Big questions.
Before we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Uh-huh.
If Bitcoin keeps going like this,
Right.
with more people using it, more trading happening, and potentially clearer regulations, what role could it play in the future global economy?
That's a tough one.
Will it completely disrupt the financial systems we know?
Right.
Will it become a part of those systems working alongside existing currencies?
It's hard to say for sure.
Or will it be something totally different that we haven't even thought of yet?
And more importantly, what could this mean for you?
Right. How could Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies impact your own financial decisions,
Yeah.
your investments, your life in the coming years?
Those are the questions to consider.
They really are. Only time will tell what happens next.
Yeah, but one thing is for certain.
What's that?
Finance is changing fast.
Yeah, it is.
And Bitcoin is leading the way.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into Bitcoin today.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you learned something new and got some food for thought.
And who knows what the future holds.
We'll be here to explore it with you every step of the way.
Sounds good.
See you next time.
See.